The deciduous plants, in contrast to the conifers, shed their leaves during the winter, and in a land as cold as this, that creates real problems. When warmer weather arrives, they have to waste precious time growing new leaves, which reduces their summer to the minimum. And that without counting the herbivores, or the most feared enemy of all, the leaf-eating caterpillars. Hidden by the leaf itself, the tiny caterpillars feed on the internal tissue, robbing the plant of its food factories, the photosynthetic cells. With luck, the birch will only lose part of its foliage, but if the attack is widespread, it'll die. The good weather does not last long enough to produce new leaves to replace the damaged ones. The same climatic conditions that give the conifers a considerable advantage over the deciduous trees are also a determining factor in Alaska's animal life. Many species, such as this bald eagle, have given birth to their young during the spring and have to make sure they complete their development before the winter freeze returns. To achieve this in so little time, the fauna needs a source of food the land is simply unable to give them. But what Alaska doesn't have, it receives every year just at the right time from the sea. As the summer advances, the grizzly bears leave the pastures to visit the shores where this manna from heaven is about to arrive. With all the calm in the world, they walk along the riverbank examining it for food. But this year, the gift from the sea is a little late in coming. For the time being, the only food around is algae and the odd dead fish. Nothing vaguely interesting for their empty stomachs. After sniffing around in the sand for something to eat, the male understands it's still early. It might be a long wait, so the best thing you can do is make yourself comfortable and dig yourself a good seat in the soft sand. And now, all that's required is a little patience. He was the first to arrive, but he's not the only one that comes to the coast. Soon he will be joined by another adult male with similar intentions. And the disputes will begin to determine who gets the best spot along the shore. The loser doesn't have to move far. Just a few meters away, he goes back to peddling around in search of food. It won't be long before these two are accompanied by other bears who, like them, have abandoned the grasslands and now impatiently examine the water. All of them are waiting for the salmon to arrive, their only hope in this cold, hostile land. Each year, thousands of salmon return to the rivers where they were born, providing the local wildlife with the food they need to build up the reserves necessary to survive the long, harsh winter. They are the manna from the sea, the reserves of protein and fat everyone is waiting for. The salmon, quite simply, are life. The role of the salmon is so important that even those species that don't eat them are affected by the phenomenon. These are sea otters, one of the few sea mammals that remain along the coast of Alaska all year round. They are relatives of the river otter, but unlike them, the sea otters spend 90% of their lives in the water. There they eat, sleep, reproduce, and even give birth to their young. The air trapped in their fur helps them to float, but it also provides insulation against the cold, essential in this far north. Thanks to this, they can float on their backs, their favorite posture, while they eat, sleep, or simply play. They have been a protected species for many years, but still their numbers are now declining, due in part to the salmon. Salmon are not the basic diet of the otters, but they do attract the seals and sea lions which come to Alaska every year. And they, in turn, are the favorite food of the largest predator in the ocean, the orca. So when the salmon are scarce, the seals and sea lions have fewer young. And when there are not many seals, sea lions, and salmon around, the orcas have to find an alternative source of food, the otters. The habitats of Alaska are both complex and fragile, the result of the extreme conditions and thousands of years of evolution. And any change, however small it may appear, can cause irreparable damage. This delay in the arrival of the salmon can itself bring severe consequences. It's now the end of June, the salmon have still not arrived, and many animals are starting to get impatient. Day after day they enter the estuaries of the rivers in the hope of seeing the tireless travelers. And day after day they return to their rocks empty-handed. Alongside them, on a tiny nearby island, the colony of puffins seems much calmer. They too have specialized in fishing, but their prey is much smaller than the salmon. For them, the herring are their own particular feast, and this year, fishing will be plentiful. While the puffins are hard at work fishing on the neighboring island, the seals and sea lions continue their wait. Both species arrived at the start of the summer in order to reproduce. They came with plenty of fat reserves because the males don't eat during the breeding season and the females have to breastfeed their young, which is an additional drain on their resources. For them, the arrival of the salmon means an incredible source of energy just at the time they're most needed. The low temperature of the water means they need a layer of fat to protect them from the cold. But if food is scarce, the sea lions, like the seals, will be forced to stop breastfeeding their young and return to their winter habitats. The pups acquire this layer of fat during lactation, so if their mothers have to return early, they will not be ready to face the journey and will die. This problem has already arisen in Alaska and has forced the law courts to place a ban on trawl net fishing in the area in order to save these colonies of marine mammals. At last there is a sign from the sea. Orcas. For once their worst enemies are a reason to rejoice as they come in pursuit of the salmon. Still, it would be a good idea to wait a little longer before diving into the banquet. The orcas are still in the vicinity, and if they spot the sea lions, they might just decide it's time to change the menu and try a little meat instead of fish.